Hi, this is Charlie from Path of the Bee. In this video, I want to talk about mushrooms, but not the kind you eat, the kind that form in a splitting wedge. So, a friend of mine, I saw a video that he had, and he was using a wedge that looked pretty much like this, and made a comment, that's dangerous. And so, I want to talk a little bit about that. I was raised in a cedar products business. My father and his partner ran for many years. And that's where I learned a lot about the properties of wood and machinery and all the kind of things I know comes from growing up in the cedar products mill. And so I wanted to talk about the kind of the proper maintenance of a wedge. I decided I was going to get on YouTube and search this up a little bit, get a little info about what other people are telling on the subject of how to maintain a wedge. And I discovered there's a lot of information that's incorrect out there. So I wanted to do my best to set the record straight from my perspective. Wedges are made out of cast steel. So they're a mild steel. They're soft. They're not hard. If they were hard, they'd shatter and break and hurt people. The hammer is hard, and that's how come the wedge mushrooms and not the hammer. So your splitting maul will have the back side of it that you're hitting the wedge with is hard. It's hardened steel. It's a high quality tool steel, and this wedge is mild steel, and it's cast in the shape that you find here. So it's important to keep our mild steel mild. We don't want to do anything to heat treat it and make it hard and brittle. So when we cut these mushrooms off, I'm just going to use a slitting wheel or a cutting wheel on a grinder. You can use a cutting torch, just a regular grinder, and grind them off. If you put heat into this, the main thing that you want to do is to let it cool kind of at room temperature very slowly and naturally. You don't want to cool it quickly, because that will cause it to harden and give a tendency to chip and hurt you. So this is a wedge that I purchased at a yard sale, and you can see that the top here has a taper to it. And if we look, we could see that they're starting to get some flakes here, right, where the top is starting to flake off. Well, what we're going to want to do is we want to cut these big mushrooms off. We want to cut these big mushroom pieces off and kind of bevel it in at an angle all the way around. And then we're going to try and grind this back flat on the surface. And I'll show you what that looks like. When I'm removing this scale here on top, we want to get all those little flakes off of there too. I'll kind of show you how that works. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and get a grinder and cut this top off. Okay, so I just got a slitting wheel here, a thin cutoff wheel, and I'm going to work on cutting this one on the back side first, and we'll see. Then I'll come in and get that side, probably turn it, see how it works. I'm going to change how I got a hold of this, make it work a little better. Come in at a flat like this. All right, here we go. Okay, so what I'm discovering is that that's a really big cut for that slitting wheel. Although it will do it, this wedge probably should have been maintained a little bit sooner than what I'm doing it now. A cutting torch might actually have been the best bet for this particular one. We'll see what I could get done here. If I have to, I'll take a torch and clean the rest of these two ends off. Okay, so that's looking a little better, and we'll get this last one here. I think I can go ahead and get it carved off of here, and then we'll fix this wedge up. Before I cut this off of here, I want to really make certain that people understand the hazards of this. So what happens is that you can see this piece is cracking here. And growing up, I've seen these get You know, people are splitting posts and rails or whatever out in the yard, or making shake bolts with the wedges in the cedar mill I grew up in. I've seen many people go to the hospital and get stitches because they had to have this removed out of their leg or some other part of their body, and have it stitched up. These are little bullets in here. When they break off, they fly and they go every which direction, and they do quite a little bit of damage to the human body. So that's why we're getting rid of that. You could see that those cracks in there. That's about to come off. I've started to cut this here, and you could just see that that's going to make a kind of an ugly little bullet here in a second. So we're going to get that removed, and we're going to grind it down. And then these little scales on the top here, and I'll show you that in detail up close when I'm grinding those off. But those fly off and get in people's eyeballs. And in fact, I've actually had to go to the hospital and have one of them little chunks of metal removed from my eye at the eye doctor. So that's why we're maintaining this, and we'll keep going. Okay, and then back here we're looking at it again. Now you can see here that that's blued, and that's rust is from that chip, but we'll take our regular grinder and we'll grind on that and get all that color out of there. I'll kind of show you how I do that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a regular grinder in here, and I'm going to remove any place that demonstrates that there's a crack there because of how it blew. So once this will shine up in the even color, no matter what that color is, if it's uniform, it means there's no crack. But if there's a variation where there's blue and then yellow and then silver along a straight line, that straight line will be the crack, and we want to grind until we don't have that appearance anymore. So I'll go ahead and dress this up a little bit. Okay, so you can see that that's a generally uniform color. There's a little bit of bluing spots in there, but I pretty much got all the crack out of that. That's where I cut a little bit. This right here is where I cut a little bit too deep with the slitting wheel a little bit earlier. So I'm just going to dress this all the way around, and then we'll address this piece on top here. Okay, so we dressed it up all the way around. Looks pretty good. That'll work. You notice how I have a slight taper in. As we use this, it'll continue to mushroom out. It has to. That's how it works. This is going to be softer than our hammer. And so what I want to work on now is this top. It's rusty, but there's going to be little fish scales show up in there as I grind on that. Okay, so this right here area is a chip, a flake developing, and so I want to make certain that I can grind that down a little bit. I bevel this top edge, you get this burr off, and then I'll grind over here a little bit more to kind of help flatten it up. I'll probably leave this hammer mark and that hammer mark in there just because this end is already too low. I want to focus hitting on the high spot of this wedge as we use it. Hopefully we can get it leveled up over time. Okay, well this wedge will work for quite a little bit again. The main thing to remember is to just maintain a little more frequent basis. What I use a wedge for is I get blocks that are too big to pick up and load in the pickup to haul home to the splitter, or they're really stringy wood. I'll use a wedge to open that up. This wedge was sharpened properly. It has a decently sharp little angle on there. See if I can show that to you. But it's sharpened up just about like a splitting axe would be, and it'll start in, and then as soon as it goes in, you know, 3/4 of an inch or whatever, it doesn't matter how sharp it is. At that point, we're using the sides of the wedge. These should be slick to make them work. I could get a flat disc out and polish these up a little bit, but no more than I use it, this is going to work fine for me. All right, well, that's basically what a person needs to do to maintain a wedge. The main thing is to keep up on it. Don't let it get as bad as this one was. That's where they become dangerous, and somebody's going to get hurt, whether it's you, the operator, or a bystander. We just don't want that. So, and it's much easier to keep up on maintenance than it is to come in and make a huge modification like I just did. The main thing here is that I put a lot of heat into this wedge, and it's hot. I still have my welding gloves on to hold it. It's hot. I can feel that it's hot through the gloves. I want that to cool slow and naturally. If I cool it quickly, it will cause the grain structure in the wedge to get hard and more brittle, and have a larger tendency to break and cause things to fly off. It'll make it a little minorly, but it will make it a little bit more brittle. And as that starts to mushroom out, any brittleness is no good. So, like I said, make sure you've got time to maintain it. You can use a cutting torch. That's fine. Just let it cool slowly. In fact, if you've got a bucket of ashes, you could throw it in there, and that's going to be the absolute best thing for it. You want your wedge soft and your hammer hard. All right, that's going to be it for this video. We'll catch you next time.